Hello again, and this video is about Graham, Part 4, chapters 11 through 14. And as I explained in the last video, we're reading Part 4 after Part 5 because this is where Graham talks about curriculum and grading and some really specific things about bringing grace into the classroom with our policies and our behaviors as teachers. With those really important things, because that's where the rubber hits the road. That's where your philosophy is enacted. So you can say whatever you want in the teacher's lounge or in your, job application, or even to the students. You can say what your philosophy is and how you're trying to teach Christianly, but it really is enacted in your grading policies and your curriculum choices and how you set up a classroom management plan. What your rules are and what your punishments or your rewards and things like that. Okay, so it all kind of comes together in a sense in my mind in Part 4 in these chapters. So the first part of this PowerPoint is more stuff on the broader stuff that I talked a lot about in the last video and is also in the last PowerPoint. Just some pieces from some of my like the conference presentation I was telling you about, some different pieces of that, and just kind of getting you to be thinking about views of truth in our culture and different Christian perspectives as they come together, in your paper, because I don't want you to lose sight and not be thinking about that, because the closer we get to the end of the course, the more that's the main thing, okay? But I do want to talk now about making curriculum choices and stuff like that. Okay, so that starts on slide 17 of the Graham PowerPoint, and the curriculum is important. It's not just covering a textbook, and it's not just covering state standards. Okay, you're bringing biblical concepts, whether you're in a public school or a Christian school. You're bringing biblical concepts into the curriculum. With the choices that you make and the way that you teach things and the way you have students discuss the aspects of a piece of literature or a law that was made that you're studying in social studies, or a mathematical concept or a scientific discovery. I mean, it's all Christian, because it's all part of God's revelation and God's grace, and our responses to that and our use of that and our understanding of those concepts. Okay, so biblical ideas in the curriculum, and how you integrate your values and your view of why humans are on this earth, and your view of calling, and your view of the divine calling that your students are going to have. All of that gets integrated into your choices and into how you talk about the curriculum. And you're asking the students to rise to a new level of responsibility in how they deal with a concept in a Shakespeare play, or a concept, a mathematical, or a use of statistics, which can be used for good or for bad, right? A use of a scientific discovery. You're asking them to rise to a level as responsible agents who have been given a lot as being educated people in this affluent culture, this knowledge saturated culture. You're developing responsibility, and some people say responsibility is the ability to respond, right? That a lot of people in a lot of other cultures haven't had. So think about that a little bit, because they'll be applying these things in new ways. So, you have a filing system in your brain, and as a teacher, you probably have it pre-organized by subject matter, and then, then topics within the subject matter. But they're going to be organizing it in totally different ways that relate to their lives. Okay, we all probably set up our C drives in totally different ways, and some don't have a C drive, right? We have OneDrive, or we have, the cloud, or whatever, or Google Docs. But everybody organizes their computer files in different ways. So think how we're organizing our knowledge files from, all the years of life that we've had and all the classes we've taken, but all the other learning experiences, that have taken up 10 times as much of our lives as our formal learning. So you're helping them organize that in a meaningful way for recall, but usefulness, okay? And then applying biblical principles like caring for others in what we learn in all the different content areas, and stewardship, and just all those through lines that I was talking about. Okay, so it's pretty cool. All right, let's look what else is in here. I'm asking you to kind of do some thinking on your own, based on the reading, to pick a content area like social studies, and then a specific focus, maybe citizenship or government, or if you really want to go right straight to the hot spot. And then just work through that in slide 18. Different ways that teachers can bring a biblical focus into that content, how it can be faith integrated, how you can ask students to be responsible agents with that new information. All right, so, go for that. All right, let's see what else I got in here. Okay, how we give assignments sends a big message of what we believe about what's important, and what we believe about the learning process, and what we believe about the usefulness of the information or the concepts or the thinking skills that the assignment is designed to promote and to nurture. So, a worksheet says something different to the students and the parents, and in terms of future recall, than writing an application, or making a PowerPoint or a video or something with the information, and being more creative and applied and that kind of stuff. So, be thinking about that a little bit with that chapter. And are you using the opportunity with class assignments, especially, to build in some cooperation with other people, to maybe have a service element of some sort? To look at life outside the school, instead of just everything being school-based and focused on, you'll need this for the next grade. We've done way too much teaching and threatening with that phrase. Like kindergartners being told, you'll need this in first grade, and all the way on up the line, high schoolers being told, you'll need this in college. And it may or may not be true, but we say it a lot, right? And in college we say, if you ever go to grad school, you'll need this, and as if the whole point of education is for everybody to get a PhD, right? It's not. So think about some of those concepts a little bit, and think about testing. I predict, I see the signs that the testing movement is going to start to weaken, because it's been around now for 30 years. And generally in education, there's a pendulum swing from kind of being student focused to being more curriculum focused every 20 years. And that went on for about 100 years. And then we kind of pegged over on the curriculum focused side with standards, and all the states had to come up with their own standards, and all the content areas had to come up with their own standards. And then a bunch of states got together and said, well, we have people, migrant workers, and we have people moving, and we should have a common core. And then people are like, a national standard, the feds can't tell us what we all have to learn, states' rights, and all that kind of stuff, right? So now there are Ivy League schools saying, you know what, we're sick of the ACT. Everybody gets great scores, and it doesn't tell us who's going to be a great student. And parents in California are keeping their kids home on testing day because the kids are full of anxiety. They're throwing up on their tests. How do you score a test with puke on it, right? Sorry, that's what teachers are asking at professional conferences now. Okay, so I think the signs are there that the standards movement and the testing emphasis is going to start to abate a little bit. Now, we're not going to ignore it. We're not going to suddenly have states saying, we were wrong, we have no standards. We're still going to have state standards for a long time, I believe. But we're going to see more emphasis toward, different alternatives, letting students have more choices, and making it more meaningful for them and that kind of stuff. So somebody sent me a picture of a sunrise in a field with a road, and that was part of her discussion forum one week with this chapter 13. And she said, when schools are so focused on standardized testing, how can the emphasis be taken off of that and instead focus on personal progress, growth, and an understanding of calling in God's world? And she saw this picture as, being kind of God's world calling to the student. So it's a pretty picture. Here, let me turn around and just kind of show you. Okay, it's that one right there. All right, so that's in your PowerPoint. How about that for high tech? Just make the computers look at each other. Okay, so be thinking about that, because we are going to start seeing different types of assessment. We already are. Okay, different, more meaningful, not so much scored by a machine and that kind of stuff. All right. So, and not grading everything and letting failure be acceptable. Graham says, let failure be acceptable. Failure tells us something valuable. Reading teachers have been saying for decades now that miscues are very valuable for telling us where the connections between letter sounds, relationships, and phonics and all that kind of stuff are missing. There's a lot of things we have to know. Like there's 26 letters in the alphabet, but like 40 some sounds that we have in English, and we combine letters, and some letters just have 4 different sounds to them. Think about that, right? So letting failure be a way to help us improve somebody's understanding instead of a way to zap them and take points off and that kind of stuff. And giving multiple opportunities to achieve. Mastery learning, competency-based learning, those are really hot topics in conferences and at different schools around the country. There are a couple colleges that are competency-based. There are high school districts that are trying to go more in that direction, and basically saying if you can do really well, like 90% on the math test at the end of the year of any grade level of math, then why should getting an F or a D on some of the earlier tests count in your final grade if you can do it now? If it's all cumulative, right? That's like saying that all your practice drivings around parking lots with your parent or your older brother or whoever was a licensed driver when you had a permit, should all be added up and count, when you go to the official driving test. It's just that official driving test that counts. Did you pass or did you not pass? It doesn't matter how many times you practiced parallel parking. One person practiced twice and another person practiced 27 times. If you can do it at your final test, you pass, right? It doesn't matter. So that's more mastery learning. So think about that. Which one seems more gracious, more biblical to you? So a bunch of slides on measurement and grading and kind of applying it to a new content area. And then there's the whole behavior thing, okay? And a lot of times Christian schools, a lot of teachers in Christian schools feel like they have to be more strict